Hi, my name is Ryan Moss. This is my presentation on the ethics of recreational drug usage. Um, what is the problem and why does it matter? The morality of recreational drug usage is a hard topic to navigate. We as a society, we use drugs, believe it or not, on a day-to-day basis. A drug is a substance that alters the mind to some degree or another. That could be nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, marijuana. These are instances of some that are legal and accepted. And obviously, that can translate to methamphetamine and heroin and party drugs, psychedelics, things of that nature. Those are also mind altering substances that are illegal. And a big argument on it being illegal is the morality of it and if it is ethical to recreationally use those drugs. Rob Lovering's take on it, he has arguments against it and on moral arguments against recreational drug use. The arguments that he goes against are that they are unhealthy, that they're considered unnatural, that they're wrong due to lack of autonomy and instrumentalizing oneself. And in regards to these, with it being unhealthy, he poses, why is it moral to box when you could be hurting yourself and eat unhealthy when you can be harming yourself, but not when you use drugs, when these are all things that you consent to do? Same with it being unnatural. We use sleep aids and medication, and we read and we listen to music, which all implement unnatural states of mind from our original state. And yet, these are all deemed moral things to do. Same with lack of autonomy. He mentions being in the military. You lose your autonomy when you're in the military. Um, and yet that's actually a commendable thing to do for a vast majority of people. And with instrumentalizing oneself, essentially he's claiming that a lot of people believe that you have to be sober in order to know right from wrong, and that it brings up this legal argument. But in fact, only insanity is what keeps you from not knowing right from wrong. And recreational drug use is not necessarily indicative of insanity. And to claim that you are instrumentalizing yourself because you are not, or you are using drugs recreationally is not necessarily a sound argument on behalf of it being moral or not. And so he concludes his arguments saying that there's not much moral credibility of the legality of prohibiting recreational drug usage, because most of the arguments presented can be proven as double sided. Um, the counter arguments on this are that a lot of people bring up the military or the food, right? You consent to being in the military and it has a better outcome. And you consent to eating unhealthily and it doesn't affect your rational moral agency. However, I it brings to question for me. You can also tie those into the same institutions of people's beliefs towards drug usage on the street, right? You could claim that the military preys on low income children who want a way out of their situation, which is something that the government claims that drug peddlers are doing, where they essentially are saying, oh, they're targeting these low income children. They don't know any better. They just want out of their situation. They're giving them money. They're giving them these things. They're getting them involved in violence. And that's essentially what the government is doing, but it's at a profit to them. And in regards to food and eating unhealthily, eating disorders actually do change your brain chemistry, and they do it significantly faster than drug usage does. With eating disorders, if you're restricting or binging or purging or whatever it may be, these very quickly change your brain chemistry and actually inhibit your ability to make rational decisions. And a lot of the time, eating disorders go hand in hand with some form of obsessive compulsive disorder. So, in regards to that, while yes, you could say that people are consenting to joining the military and eating unhealthily, these are also things that have negative implications if you really think about it and get down onto their bare bones. And these are things that is that really consent? What I believe is that it's morally unjust to criminalize individuals for their choice to use drugs recreationally and to perceive their actions as immoral and that be your basis to why it's wrong. Um, I believe that the usage should not be banned or punished. Obviously, distribution is different because I mean, the government's distributing it anyway. There's many institutions that are going to be distributing drugs. You go to the bar, you go to a coffee shop, you go to a vape shop. These are all examples of distributing drugs. I do believe that it is more unsafe to get them off the street, but similarly, unsafe practices have happened based off of things being illegal. Not even just with drugs in the past. You can look at the Prohibition era where alcohol was illegal, and it people actually ended up getting more addicted to alcohol because the alcohol content that they were consuming in the liquor that they were receiving was a lot higher because it wasn't regulated. Similarly to that is the abortion ban. People are still getting abortions. It's just unsafe and not by licensed professionals. Anti-LGBT laws and the AIDS epidemic. When you say that something is morally wrong, like gay marriage or even the right to deny a patient based on their sexuality, the AIDS epidemic spread and killed a lot of people based off of this similar mindset. And currently, I can bring it back to the early 2000s and currently with the opioid epidemic and the fentanyl epidemic, which are both instances of these being medications that can legally be used, but are frowned upon and shamed and deemed unethical to abuse. And there's not a lot of situations in which you can get help for these things. And so now people are buying it on the street and dying, and if not dying, getting extremely neglected and addicted. And I feel like these are avoidable if there is a shift in the perception on if these things are moral or not. For example, I have a friend who was overdosing and went to the hospital and asked for help and went to the ER and was like, I need help, I'm overdosing. And they said, how about you just don't do it anymore? That's our suggestion. How about you just stop doing drugs? Which is a little ironic to me, that there was this stigma around getting help. And that's because of the moral implications of it, in my opinion. My questions for the class are: do you think substance use should be criminalized? And why do you find your answer to be morally correct? Why do you think drug usage is immoral? And do you use a legal substance such as caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, etc. in your day-to-day life? And if so, do you consider yourself addicted to it? And or why do you think it's legal when other substances aren't? I posed this question, especially the last one, as someone I'm sober. I'm 18 months sober, but I still deem the stigma and question of morality around drug usage as something that's more harmful than it is good, and the outcomes that are wished from these claims, I feel, are the opposite of what is happening for the most part. So, with these questions, I open it up. I want to hear what everybody has to say. I want to hear different perspectives. Um, but yeah, that's all I got on the topic. And I hope you all have a good one.